Inflation. Well, the biggest property insurance reform in decades is now headed to the governor's desk tonight. The House today giving final approval of the bill earlier this afternoon. Republicans tonight say it's going to avert a total collapse of the insurance market. Democrats are calling it an insurance bailout. And tonight, Capitol reporter Forrest Saunders joining us live from Tallahassee. All right, Forrest, so they did it. And now the question, of course, is will it work?
Yeah, that's what everybody wants to know, and unfortunately we're going to have to take some time to figure that out. But what I can tell you, speaking of time, is that this policy moved very fast. I mean, lawmakers got these bills, which were more than 100 pages, just on Friday evening. They had the weekend, and then they began the work on Monday, and now here we are 3 days later, and those policies are on their way to becoming law.
With Florida premiums 3 times the national average, insurers going insolvent, and the next big storm threatening economic catastrophe, Republicans Wednesday said help is on the way after passing their package
84 yeas, 33 nays, Mr. Speaker.
Show the bill passes.
Of big changes.
And the biggest, meatiest, beefiest property insurance reform legislation that this state has ever seen.
The GOP majority says the legislation will stabilize things, bring in more competition, and eventually lower prices, though no one's sure when.
We think that in the long term, premiums will go down. In the long term. In the short term, realistically, probably not.
The plan attacks 2 of insurers' biggest concerns, a glut of litigation by reducing incentives to sue and lowering the cost of reinsurance with $1 billion tax dollars. The state-backed carrier of last resort, Citizens, also getting new qualifications to push more policyholders onto private plans.
We're in a very, very bad spot. So the win today is the hope that we can continue to have insurance.
While insurers have told us everyone will benefit,
if the costs go down, I have to pass those cost reductions on to my customers.
John Stetton is leery.
It's extremely discouraging.
The Cape Coral homeowner struggling to get what he thinks he's owed from his insurer after Hurricane Ian. He fears his access to courts is about to be cut.
It's not really a political or a partisan issue. It's just a right and wrong issue.
Democrats in the House have the same worry and doubt any Floridian will see rate reductions.
What we saw today is a continuation of erosion of consumer coverages.
They tried to amend the bill Wednesday with premium caps and more. None were adopted.
Florida has the largest budget surplus in its history, and rather than directly help homeowners, we provided a bailout to the industry.
Okay, so what's next here? Well, the bill will be officially conveyed over to Governor Ron DeSantis. That could happen yet this evening or later this week. We'll just have to wait and see, but I can tell you he is expected to sign. Paul?
Yeah, a lot of wait and see on this whole thing, Forrest. What is Citizens Insurance saying about the bill's passage? I imagine it's welcoming the changes so it can go back to, at least theoretically on paper, being the last resort option.
Yeah, what they're saying is that they are hopeful that this policy will move them back into a residual role for the state. Just since January of this year, we've seen policies increase by about 50%. You got to remember, Citizens was created just to be a catch-all for those who couldn't find insurance in the state of Florida, and they have now swollen to more than 1.1 million policies in force. So they're hopeful that they can slim down their numbers and potentially reduce the state's any kind of big issue like a storm moving through. It could have big exposure for taxpayers if all of the citizens' claims are impacted, or a great number of them. So slimming down that policy, those policies, Republicans hope will bring some relief to the state of Florida eventually.
Yeah, time truly is money on this deal. The billion-dollar question, when will we see the results? When will costs actually come down? They seem to be sticking to that 18-month timetable.
Yeah, and I've heard anywhere from 18 months to 2 to 3 years. I mean, one of the things that they're certain about is what the goal of this policy was, to create a foundation and to stabilize the market. And then the hope is to bring in more competition, more private competition. They will be competing for prices, and eventually consumers will see a reduction. But certainly not many Democrats are convinced that is going to happen, and they wanted to see some actual rate caps. They wanted to see freezes And there was concern that that was going to manipulate the market too much from Republicans and actually drive more insurers out. So there's a back and forth there that is going to continue as we wait and see if this policy is going to have any dramatic or immediate impact on consumers. But no one is suggesting that. I mean, right now Republicans are saying you're going to have to give it some time.
Yeah, a lot can happen in 2 to 3 years. All right, Forrest Saunders joining us live from Tallahassee tonight. Thank you, Forrest. Well, let's